best conversations happen at happy hour. Welcome to Ours.
Welcome aboard.
This is the PT Pintcast. Here's your host, physical therapist, Jimmy McKay.
Along with me, PTA, Katie Sutton for PTA Plus. Katie, we're still doing this from the APTA Future of Rehab Therapy Summit
But
Forts.
we are in a different location today.
We are at APTA headquarters. I call this Avengers Tower. This feels like, if you've seen any of the Avengers movie, the Marvel movies, this feels like where like Tony Stark
Very Marvel.
does his stuff.
Yeah.
It's like very, very modern and sleek. Look at it. Reagan Airport.
Yep.
I see the Capitol over there. We're in the boardroom.
Room with a view.
Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking a leap. You feel like a yes, and then we'll figure it out later. Like, who is this guy who's asking me to be on this podcast? And then I'll vet him in the background, but I'll say maybe. And then if he checks out, I'll say yes.
You saw that, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, that's smart. Don't just say yes, some Yahoo. I will say thank you to all the people. I started this podcast 9.5 years ago when you still needed to explain to people what a podcast was. Now I feel like people have gotten it. But thanks to all the people who just said yes. They're like, I don't know, podcast? How bad could it be?
We've had a lot over the last 2 days.
We have had a lot.
Sure.
The funny part is the reason I think a lot of people, number one, who's this guy? Why do they want my words? And how might this affect positively or negatively? The other that I see a lot is I don't have anything to add. And I'm like, I'm looking at your resume, or I'm looking at what you've done for the last 10, 15, 25 years. And I'm like, I think you might have this. And I was just talking about this concept in the hallway. I think you might have what's called the curse of knowledge. Like, you know so much about your thing that you're like, well, this is all obvious. I'm like, yeah, to you. not to a lot of other people. So, Angela, you have a degree in physical therapy.
Yes.
You also have 3 other letters after your name, which is MBA. And I don't want to brag, but I have 33% of an MBA. I did my first year of business school, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this.
33?
Maybe I'll come back. So I don't want to brag. I do put it on my resume to see if people like pay attention. I also wanted to be a conversation starter. Like, why'd you leave? Like, because usually quitting is looked upon as a bad thing. And I was like, it wasn't going to fit.
So for me, I had a private practice early in my career. I had it for about 7 years, grew it to 3 offices, was very successful. But as you know, payers just weren't paying, and I had to think about what was I going to do next. When I left, I sold my practice. I, at that time, decided to get an MBA. Because I needed, though I love physical therapy and I love what we do, I needed to get the PT off my forehead. I wanted health executives to see me as a business person in healthcare so I can bring the physical therapy profession along. So that was the reason I went. It wasn't that I left at that time. I still stayed in the physical therapy realm, if you will, but I wanted to get that MBA degree.
Did you know... did you see 3 steps ahead, or was it like, I'll get the MBA and then I will look where that will take me? Did you look at it like an airport? Like, I'm going to go there, then I'll figure out where to go. I'll pick from what's on the board. Or did you say that I know this is a point along this map that I've laid out for myself?
No, I think it was more of, I wish I would have had this knowledge while in private practice. I think I would have understood how to get investors, how to do the business plan, because I already had a vision of where we needed to go, but I didn't have that experience, or that knowledge. And so therefore why I went to MBA school, though I didn't, in hindsight, I learned so much in private practice.
Sure.
Just jumping in, but learned a lot more after I got my MBA.
Owning a private practice, you had to have had some
crash
lessons
course
in business, right?
I did.
You probably figured some things out very fast.
I did a lot of negotiating with payers. That was a big lesson for me, and just the relationships with physicians and strategic partnerships. I mean, I built relationships, and I realized that was what really mattered. But I love the core came from loving patients and patient care. So that's always been part of my core and why I do what I do today.
But you knew that that's not what you wanted to be doing 5 or 10 years from there?
I knew that I could do more. I knew I could impact more patients at a larger scale with the passion I had, but also the business knowledge I innately had. I just needed some expertise along with that. That's
smart. And how long was your MBA? Because they vary. Sometimes
it was
it's
2
years.
2 years. It was an executive MBA out of Florida International University.
Yeah. Okay.
You treat the patient, a Thelis AI scribe does the rest. It listens, transcribes, and writes your notes, even with background noise or accents. Try it out. Email me for a quick walkthrough, jimmy@ptpintcast.com. Whether you're a solo PT or running multiple clinics, Empower EMR grows with you. It's flexible, cloud-based, and actually easy to use. See it in action at empoweremr.com.
And that you're looking at your LinkedIn profile, like, the resume online now, which is what we have. You've been in some rooms where it happened, to quote Hamilton. We're in the APTA Board of Directors boardroom. Thanks, Drew, for letting us in here.
Yeah.
So you've been in the room. You've done that. You've taken PT off your forehead and said, I can have these conversations on your level. Talk a little bit about some of the rooms you've been in, or the seats that you've had, and how you've been able to sort of use. You snuck a PT into a lot of these places where maybe PTs haven't been before.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the boardroom, because I always say I'm taking PT from a treatment room to a boardroom. And because PTs need to have a seat at that table. And that's something I've been after for all these years. How do we get PTs at that table, and how we do that? So I'll answer your question in a second. Was we needed to change the message to more of the value. And we've used that word, that term very loosely, but it's truly about, we know our value. PTs know, we know what we bring to patients, but are we using the right words? Are we talking about cost? Are we talking about outcomes? How are we combining the two when we're speaking to payers, when we're speaking to health executives? And that's what I wanted to cultivate within our profession. So
talking about benefits and not features.
yes, correct.
And
correct.
when I give demonstrations, or I'll talk to people in clinical practice, and I'll give the explanation of features versus benefits. Sometimes I've got to do it 2 or 3 times, or 2 or 3 different ways. And I say, this is a big mistake you could make here. And features, I give the red Jeep analogy. It's like, I've got a red Jeep at home in my driveway. It's 4-wheel drive. It's a hard top that opens up. It's 4 doors, and it's red, like I said. It's 4-wheel drive. And so those are features. Right?
Right.
Benefits are, well, when I roll into a campsite, like, everyone notices because it's red, right? 4-wheel drive. Do you think the upstate New York snow ever stops me? Absolutely not. It's 4 doors. I never leave a friend behind.
Love it.
It's convertible. I can go from covered to wind in my hair in 90 seconds.
That's right.
Those are 2 different things.
That's right.
And in our education, I think we're taught to talk about benefits.
That's right.
Facts, things that you can measure, right? Signs and symptoms. There's a time and place for that. There's also a time and place for story, or being able to talk to someone else about what they value. There's that V word. And those are benefits. So if you talk about benefits, those feel like they're shared.
And understanding what who you're speaking with, and align them. Because I think sometimes we can speak from what we understand.
Yep.
We've got to understand who we're speaking with and what message is going to resonate.
Yep. I call it the eyebrow test. And this was simple for me. I ran a radio station for 15 years, or was part of running radio stations for 15 years. If I only talked about the radio station, the potential advertising partner across the table would go, cool story, bro, but good for you. Well, we have access to 18 to 25-year-old males who have this much disposable income, and they live in these geographic areas, and you're trying to sell trucks or pizzas or anything you're trying to sell. Like, now you see how we can marry these 2 things together. And their eyebrow goes up. I was taught that, a great lesson from a former boss. It was like, just pay attention to their eyebrow. When it goes up, just keep stop, go now double back on that and go deeper on that.
Yes, I love that.
So let's get back to your rabbit holes.
Okay.
Looking at your LinkedIn profile, you've been in different organizations and in different I don't know, from the titles anyway, like wildly different roles. Just talk about some of them.
It's funny you mention this, because I do get calls from a lot of colleagues, and they'll ask me, well, tell me about your journey. How did you go from being a treating therapist to what you're doing today? And truly, it is connected. And I'm going to go back to patient care, right? It started, that core has always been what's driven me, my passion. I knew patients were not getting what they deserved, and I needed to figure out how I was going to help change this, even if it was a small piece. So treated, sold my practice. Then once I did that, I worked for a healthcare system down in South Florida, and I jumped over and I said, managed imaging centers and ambulatory surgery centers, urgent care, and, home health, everything on outside of a healthcare system, because I knew that's where healthcare was going to happen for patients. That's where they want to be treated. But with all of that, I understood how siloed healthcare was, and how patients really weren't getting the care they needed. It was just so fragmented. Fast forward, moved to North Carolina, worked as an orthopedic service line director for Duke. Great experience, and that's where I started speaking about value-based care. It wasn't even this was 2007, 2008. We weren't really using that term, but I was meeting with orthopedic surgeons, and when we're talking about how do we get a patient home after a total joint replacement? Let's not send them to a sniff, right? How do we look at device costs, and how do we bring the cost down there, and how do we align on those? So again, always thinking about value and how do we do better care and deliver that. I saw that being on the provider side, I was making change, but not the change I wanted to see. I jumped over to the quality improvement organization, and there I started. This is now 2014. ACOs were now coming. We're starting to talk about accountable care. And there I was able to help influence, develop an analytic solution. I called it Convergix. I trademarked it, worked with Duke ACO, worked with other ACOs in the area, and we were, teaching physicians how to identify patients at risk, and at that time it was kidney care, and provide better care at a lower cost. So this was like the initial phases of, and I said, this makes so much sense. Like, how do we get more upstream and treat patients and bring them in so they can avoid costly non-value care, if you will.
Sure.
From there, I then jumped over to, I live in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, and worked for the Medicaid program. They brought me in and they said, we really want you to help us stand up the new value-based care Medicaid program. And so I helped an operator, a COO, start connecting the dots around value-based care and how to start thinking about that. Great experience then that's on a payer side now. So understanding what that looks like. That's when then Aledade came to market, which is a startup. It was one of the first startups besides my own business, but that, different scale there. Working with primary care providers and bringing those partnerships into accountable care organizations, right? So here is where it all started making sense for me for our profession. I saw how we were talking about managing population health, and bringing the PCP in at the core because they are the quarterback of patients. And think about this for a second. Connect the dots here. PCPs, 5% of the total healthcare cost, but managing, right, 85% of the cost. Complaint, administrative burden, they're not getting paid, right? The whole race to the bottom with fee-for-service, all the same kind of things we're hearing our profession go through. I was able to convince them, because they did not want to get into these risk models and population health. Well, lo and behold, they're in these programs now. I would say 3/4 of them, I think, are in these programs. And not only are they providing better care to their patients, they have less administrative burden, they're making more money now, right? So it just made sense. And so I thought, talking to them, I said, what if you had a PT with you? And this is 2018, 19, 20, who then can help you manage MSK. Oh, we would love that. We don't know what to do with our patients that have MSK. Mm-hmm. Light went off, right? I said, okay. So I worked there about 4.5 years, but now I really wanted to get into MSK. Aledade wasn't at that time ready to build out the specialty models. Jumped over to Sword, tried to help them build out that model. I think it just wasn't ready at that time. Jumped over to CVS, wanted me to do more about the PCP, but I really wanted to get back into MSK.
Sure.
That's how I came over to Taylor Care in December, and love the model that they're doing, because PTs are triaging patients, MSK patients, and then through that triage, then providing that downstream care to those high-value providers.
So how do you describe what Taylor Care does? Like someone from the outside, if you're a patient or a provider, what does it do?
It is, think about precision navigation.
Felt like a GPS from everything I read.
Yeah. But what's really interesting about this model, what I love about it, is you got to start with the payer, right? And you got to have that partnership. And Tailored Care takes risk on musculoskeletal cost. So what does that mean? We go back to the PCP. You look at a population. There's a cost around MSK. So let's just throw a number out, $1 million. So Taylor Care is saying, you know what, we're going to take that cost and we're going to lower that cost. And if we don't lower that cost, we're going to pay that payer back. So it's on them.
Skin in the game.
Skin in the game. So now my role as VP of Market Development is I look out into throughout the nation and I say, I have data and I know who are the top value providers in PT and orthopedics right now. There are others, but let's just look at those two. And I'm going into those markets and I'm chatting with them and I'm saying, we'd love for you to be a preferred provider. We're going to basically send you referrals. There's no cost. There's no change in your billing, Nothing else changes.
So I'm a PT in a market that you've decided. You come to me and say, we'd like to send you patients,
That's it.
some of our patients. Then what happens?
So we want to integrate with scheduling systems, integrate with clinics, sharing clinical information, right? We've got to streamline this workflow. One, for patient. You don't want to cause more abrasion around patient. But also just for the practice itself. It's just, we got to connect the dots here. And that's pretty much it. Have access to care within 7 days, get a patient in. And so going back to Taylor Care, right? A PT is navigating that patient, sending them off to, let's say, a PT provider. They will have touch points within that patient's care journey to ensure that those outcomes are being achieved and the patient continues to be engaged, right, throughout that journey. So we're working together. And the goal, and what I tell the PT folks that I'm speaking with and working with, I tell them, we want you to have the best care. So we have performance scorecards. We look at, function of the patient, all those patient-reported outcomes, as well as cost and efficiency and patient experience. And, wherever there's opportunities for improvement, we want them to improve. So we're sharing that data with them to help them keep that value up.
Okay, so wait, how do we follow the money though? Like how? So payers saying
To Taylor Care
to the provider, to make sure that they hit certain benchmarks, certain value. Like you said, $1 million, but we're gonna make sure it costs $800,000. We just showed you a net $200,000 savings.
That's right.
And if we don't, we pay you some sort of penalty.
Right.
So you're being held accountable for.
Taylor Care is being held accountable. Providers are, now the accountability around the providers is, if you want to get the referrals, you got to keep the value up.
And how do you track that? The outcomes
Data.
that you're sharing back and forth.
We
So
have
now
data.
what do you integrate with their EHR to now
Yes.
track that?
Yes.
Through an API or
Yes.
I mean,
API,
you don't have to get
API is ideal. Yes.
Got it. So you're looking. So I guess maybe one of the in or exclusion criteria would be like, what EHR are you on? Because if you can't integrate with it, or you'll just figure it out.
That's a great question. As we're learning that now, as we're going through all the different ones.
Because there are more than you thought.
Yes, there
I
are.
have learned in the last 6 months how many there are.
Yes.
And new ones will pop up, and I'll go, where did this one come from?
Or they're proprietary, right? They've built them themselves, right? And then you're trying to figure that out.
Then there's the other one, which is I talked to a clinician the other day in upstate New York, I won't say it was, who took one and essentially modified it. He hired people overseas to then zhuzh it in a certain way. He took one that you've heard of and it said, I need it to do this. He didn't like break the code or anything, but he essentially modified it. And I'm like, I think at that point I just would have went for their different EHR personally instead of like Frankensteining this. But okay, now I understand. Now you're able to track what your patient is doing. The patient you sent to that provider.
That's right.
And how they went. What are the things? I mean, you don't have to go into the crazy weeds, but what are the things that you track? What are the important things?
So patient outcomes, right? I think those patient-reported outcomes. So pain and function. Let's just stick there, and then cost, efficiency. So think about when you normalize the data too. So let's just take a back pain patient. Okay, normalize the data. So you got those that are more chronically ill than others, but let's just normalize it. And I can look at that data and say, okay, this PT provider. So you're going to actually look at great teams, and then you're going to look at the really great players on those teams, right? And I'm going to say, okay, this particular PT was able to do that low back pain patient, let's just say 12 visits, and their outcomes were way up here. This PT actually did it in 20 visits, and their outcomes are not as great. Right? So now we're going to prioritize those providers within that market. And so when that referral is needed to get sent out, we have a referral rec engine where we're building. And so that PT navigator within Taylor Care, when they're ready to send the referral, they kind of click a button and boom, there's going to come a list of where does that patient go.
It's like restaurants. Who's got the table, right?
Yeah.
And how many stars does that restaurant have?
stars
And
does
is this the type of restaurant I need? Is this the flavor that I need?
Your 5-star PT.
There you go. And that's why I tell PTs all the time, like,
You're the Yelp.
you got to, you have to think about your outcomes and cost together. This is not about volume anymore. It's about value.
Or warm and fuzzies.
It's not. This is great. Right? One of our magic within us. That's our secret sauce in some ways. Our art is the connection with patients. Right.
Right. But I need to be able to prove that is a nice. I need to make sure that's a benefit to someone else. It's a benefit to the patients. They feel great, or they're able to come there and tell you about their grandkids and spend time with you. I need the other things to matter to someone else, or we're not going to be able to play this game anymore.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
That's where it's coming down to.
What do you got, Katie?
I want to know why it was important for you to come to the Future of Rehab Therapy
Yeah.
Summit. Because
I'm very, great question. Because I look at the audience more than the speakers a lot of times, and I'm going, who is that? Why are they, what were they expecting?
Like, what's that draw?
Great question.
Well, first of all, I mean, Kyle is kind of my neighbor, I guess.
Yeah, North
if you
Carolina.
will, right? North Carolina and Durham. And he's invited me a couple times to his class to talk about value-based care. So I've really enjoyed that. And I think he's just a great innovator in his mindset. So I also know Drew, and I know they were putting on this summit. And so I was just really interested and excited to hear we're talking so much about innovation in this space. So I wanted to learn more, see what the conversations were about, who are the folks in this room, what are they thinking about? And it's been a great experience. It's been great to connect with Alex and some of the other people too in person, and Jerry. And so just really wanted to build those relationships more and hear what's going on and share in those ideas, because who said it best? Was it yesterday? A couple people have said it. I mean, this is where innovation happens, is in those hallway conversations.
Oh, yeah.
And in these spaces. And I love what they're doing.
Yeah. Our tagline started 9.5 years ago. Someone else came up with it. I can't take credit, but the best conversations happen at happy hour, when you're there just to sort of meet and mix. And I know LinkedIn and I know different social platforms can do that, but we're wired for this. We're wired for eye contact and body language and who are you, good to meet you, and those different things. So I think that's a great question.
And I love all the innovation that's happened too. They're talking about different products, and I love how they're connecting it to value.
Yeah.
How is this going to drive value? It's, for me, 30 plus years I've been thinking about this. Well, to sit here and hear it is exciting.
Oh yeah. Well, and you said, your goal was to get PTs in the boardroom, right?
Yes.
So for me, I'm a physical therapist assistant.
Yeah.
PTA Plus podcast. For me, it's how do I get PTAs in the rooms that they need to be in to ask the questions, because I hear all the time, are we going to be sustainable, or PTA is going to go away, all of these things. And I'm like, well, you better get yourself in proximity to the people that you can influence to make a change. So if you're not showing up to the boardroom, it could go away.
Great point.
So you got to be there.
Make your own luck. I heard someone say yesterday.
You became a physical therapist to help people, not to feel like just another number. At US Physical Therapy, we're 135 plus local brands, backed by one national support team. That means more opportunity and better resources, while working for locally owned clinics in your backyard. Find your next role with a company that puts PTs first. Start today at usph.com.
What else would you add, or what would you want if they did it again in 2 years? Because I was talking with some people who were here, and I'm always curious, asking similar questions like that. What did you expect? Is this what you thought it was going to be? Is this what would you like to see next? If you came, what would get you to come back?
I want to take the conversation around value-based care deeper.
Okay.
I want to hear. We're talking a lot about great products, right, and services. Let's connect the dots. Right,
care models
with care models, and how are we delivering that? And we talked about this earlier, is about the messaging that is going to resonate with payers.
Sure, yeah.
Do you know
we
what I mean?
say a lot of these big fancy words, but you're right. I think we need to dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah, because I think we understand our world and what patients need, and let's develop these things, and we know it brings value. Let's connect that to the entire ecosystem in the healthcare delivery system. Yeah. We have a great role and opportunity as PTs and PTAs to lead this change in healthcare delivery.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the time.
Mm-hmm. This makes
right now.
This passes our own internal eyebrow test, but how do you make it pass someone else's eyebrow test? That's what makes that's one step in making sure someone else wants to show up and work with you.
That's right.
Yeah. What's a myth or outdated idea, concept that you wish would just absolutely go away when you see other people talking about it, or you're saying, "Man, we should be past this," or "Gosh, this is still around"?
Oh, that's a good one.
Anything that makes the guest list stop and think. I love it. There's nothing that drives you nuts that you're saying, like, we're past this. I mean, I know obviously value-based care is the way that a lot of people are saying, and it's a crazy idea. It was a crazy idea 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how ideas that actually stick around start. They start as a crazy idea.
But you're saying what's
something right
today?
now? Something right now that you're like, this shouldn't be in 3 to 5 years. Why are we still talking about this?
Well, I think volume. We still talk about volume a lot.
In terms of the only way to do more, get more is volume.
Right, and you'll
keep
hear
the lights on.
and you'll hear the private practitioners, especially, they keep their doors open, right? They've got to have the volume, and they need the two, and I hear these 2 times a week for 4-week visits. It makes me crazy. It just, we've got to break out of that, and we know what patients need, and we need to start demonstrating that. And we need to do it and take a risk because when it becomes uncomfortable is when change happens. And we got to get out of that and say, you know what? I know this is what keeps my lights on, but I'm willing to take this risk, at least this portion, and jump into this new space that I know then I can really drive better care. Because we talk a lot about admin burden and all this other stuff. That's coming because we're doing the old school way of providing services because it's how it keeps our lights on.
Yeah, you're playing the old game and you're winning. You play the old game, win old prizes.
Yeah.
Play more of the old game, win more prizes, which is actually, like you mentioned before, that race to the bottom analogy.
It's a race
which is
to
like,
the bottom.
well, the more you see, the more work you have to do, and then it's a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
The time to take the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. If you want shade, and the second best time is right now. So some people will say, well, it'll change. This thing will get better but hope's not a strategy.
No, it's not.
So you're saying the best time to take a risk is now, or
Right
20
now.
years ago. Now the second best time is right now.
Right now.
So, Angela, parallel to this conversation about us breaking out of the mold of our systems that we're in, right?
Yeah.
I moderated a panel yesterday on nonlinear careers, and you are like the perfect example of this, right? So something that I kind of wish would go away is this whole idea that PTs can't get out of the clinic, right? But I think you're that example of how the PT needed to be in the other room or the other space to kind of help us break out of these molds. So what do you think we need to do to change the profession's mindset about getting out of the clinic in certain instances to take on some of those nonlinear or non-clinical roles?
Somebody said it really good on that panel, by the way, and I don't remember who it was, but they said that just do it, and if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Then you'll continue, and that's kind of how I've done my journey. And I think it's that, and somebody else said it too. Follow that passion, whatever that is that drives you. Keep going. Like for me, it was when I couldn't treat my patients the way I needed to, or I had to do pro bono care. That's when it went off for me. Going, all right, this is my journey. Long as and that's always been my core, no matter what role I had, even when I wasn't treating or in the physical therapy realm. That was always the core. And so you just got to jump out. It will figure itself out. But if you don't jump out and take the risk, somebody's going to come right behind and take our role.
Yeah.
I can't say it enough. If PTs don't do it, there's going to be somebody else taking over.
And will you be mad that they did it, or mad that they did it and you didn't? You'll regret the things that you didn't do, not the things that you did do, which was brought up yesterday as well.
Yeah.
But you still have an impact.
Yes.
Like you're not touching a patient every single day, but you're still having an impact on that patient.
Yes.
Downstream.
A lot of people I talk to, myself included, because I was in the clinic for a year and a half, but the whole time I sort of knew, I'm like, this isn't the space for me, but I did it because I thought everybody around me was just saying, well, you just went to school for a couple of years. This is what you have to.
Right.
And I did it sort of begrudgingly. I liked most of it, but the whole time my head was sort of somewhere else. Yeah. And I didn't experience that with my first career in broadcasting and journalism and communications. Never experienced that. I sort of didn't care which floor of the building I was on, mailroom or the studio. Great, excited to be there. And it was weird for me. I just made a giant career pivot. If I could tell myself something, my version of myself back then, I'd say, you got to make one person happy. You can't. You're not pizza or ice cream. You're not going to make everybody happy. So try to make yourself happy.
And if you do that, you're going to always be successful, no matter what you do. I get up every day. It doesn't feel like a job. This is like, it's just part of my world. My daughter knows. She's always like, what are you doing now, Mom? Because I'm always, whether I'm talking to someone or I'm on LinkedIn and trying to help someone, someone's asking me whatever it is. This is not an 8 to 5.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think the more we can do that, the more impact we'll have.
Yeah. Your brains as PTAs or PTs, they're wired for that. They are also wired to take that familiar skill into an unfamiliar place. Yes. You're allowed to do that.
Yes.
You're allowed to do that. We only get one go around.
That's it.
You're allowed to do that. I said it 3 times because I think I need to tell myself that. You're allowed to do that.
One thing I do when something I'd love PTs to pick up too, because I'll hear the complaints of the admin burden or whatever those complaints are. If they would just, and we say this all the time with our patients, right? We got to find those solutions, short-term goals and long-term goals. Do the same thing, whatever that is. Flip it. What would it look like if to get rid of that problem?
Sure.
And I know you can't solve it today, but start taking those baby steps.
That's smart.
Start connecting the dots with those people who understand that.
Yeah, you can complain about it. And then tomorrow, you're going to be in the same spot.
That's right.
You just be more mad. Or say, I'm not going to solve it all today.
Right.
And the thing that you'll see now is there's technology out there to alleviate. Someone has been smart enough to say, what's a real problem? If I solve this, would you be willing to give me X? Yes. Great, I'll create that solution.
Yeah.
Parting shot?
Parting shot.
All right,
Yeah.
so we have a tradition on the show, Angela. It's called the parting shot. So what's your last soapbox statement, mic drop moment, quote, idea, some sentiment you might want to leave with the audience as we wrap up?
I kind of said it earlier, though.
You can repeat. Repeats are allowed. It's okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, great opportunity for physical therapists. If they do not take this opportunity today, they're going to be left behind. This is, right now in the history of our profession, this is an amazing time to take the reins and take the lead, whether you're in a clinic, whether you're an administrator, it doesn't matter what role you're in, take the lead now. Now. There's no more time to wait.
Love it. If someone wanted to reach out and connect with you, where would you tell them to go?
LinkedIn is great. Also, I'm happy to give my Taylor Care email, which is adiaz@taylorcare.com. And happy to share my cell too. I'm always chatting with people or texting is 919-210-3884.
Expect some calls or late night text messages of people looking for career advice or
Be like, hey,
or
Angela,
shared
help me
ideas.
out.
You got to pay it forward.
Love
and I
it.
love to do that. It's all about educating others. Yeah.
Angela, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks for taking a leap on crazy people like us.
Oh, you guys were wonderful. Thank you both.
Thanks.
This is the PT Pinecast.
Brooks IHL residency grads have a 93% board pass rate. That's good. Nearly 20% higher than the national average. Are you ready to level up and become a clinical expert? Take the next step at brooksihl.org.
There aren't nearly enough podcasts in this world. Said no one. Why not launch one more? If you thought about launching a show but don't quite know how, we can help you do all that back-end stuff. Email me at jimmy@ptpintcast.com and we can add one more podcast no one else will listen to the pile.